Piglet is rescued. When Piglet is entirely surrounded by water, there seems to be no hope for escape. But then Winnie the Pooh has a rather brilliant idea. It rained and it rained and it rained. Piglet told himself that never in all of his life, never had he seen so much rain. Days and days and days. If only, he thought as he looked out of the window, I had been in Pooh's house or Christopher Robin's house or Rabbit's house when it began to rain. Then I should have had company all this time instead of being here all alone with nothing to do except wonder when it will stop. He imagined himself with Pooh saying, "Did you ever see so much rain, Pooh?" And Pooh saying, "Oh, isn't it awful, Piglet?" It would have been jolly to talk like this, and really it wasn't much good having anything exciting like floods if you couldn't share them with somebody. For it was rather exciting. The little dry ditches in which Piglet had nosed about so often had become streams. The little streams across which he had splashed were rivers, and the river between whose steep banks they had played so happily had sprawled out of its own bed and was taking up so much room everywhere that Piglet was beginning to wonder if it would be coming into his bed very soon. It's a little anxious, he said to himself, to be a very small animal entirely surrounded by water, and I can't do anything. It went on raining, and every day the water got a little higher, until now it was nearly up to Piglet's window. Then suddenly he remembered a story when Christopher Robin had told him about a man on a desert island who had written something in a bottle and thrown it into the sea. And Piglet thought that if he wrote something in a bottle and threw it into the water, perhaps somebody would come and rescue him. He left the window and began to search the house, and at last he found a pencil, a small piece of dry paper, and a bottle with a cork in it. He wrote on one side of the paper, "Help! Piglet! Me!" On the other side, "It's me, Piglet, help, help." But then he put the paper in the bottle and he threw the bottle as far as he could and he watched it floating slowly away into the distance. When the rain began, Pooh was asleep. It rained and it rained and it rained, and he slept and he slept and he slept. He had a tiring day. You remember how he discovered the North Pole? Well, he was so proud of this that he asked Christopher Robin if there were any other poles such as a bear of little brain might discover. There's a South Pole, said Christopher Robin, and I expect there's an East Pole and a West Pole, though people don't like talking about them. Then suddenly he was dreaming. He was at the East Pole, and it was a very cold pole with snow and ice all over it. He had found a beehive to sleep in, but there wasn't room for his legs, so he had left them outside. And wild woozles, such as inhabit the East Pole, came and nibbled at all of the fur off his leg to make nests for their young. And the more they nibbled, the more colder his legs got, until suddenly he woke up with an ow! There he was, sitting in his chair with his feet on the water and water all around him. He splashed to his door and looked out. "This is serious," said Pooh. "I must have an escape." So he took his largest pot of honey and escaped with it to a broad branch of his tree well above the water, and then he climbed down again, escaped with another pot, and then the whole escape was finished. There was Pooh sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there beside him were 10 pots of honey. 2 days later, there was Pooh sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there beside him were 4 pots of honey. 3 days later, there was Pooh sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there beside him was 1 pot of honey. 4 days later, there was Pooh. And it was on the morning of the 4th day that Piglet's bottle came floating past him, and with one loud cry of "Honey!" Pooh plunged into the water, seized the bottle, and struggled back into his tree. "Oh, bother," said Pooh as he opened it. "All that wet for nothing. What's that bit of paper doing?" He took it out and looked. It's a message, he told himself. Oh, and I can't read it. I must find Christopher Robin or Owl or Piglet, and they will tell me what this message means. Oh, only I can't swim. Bother. Then he had an idea. He said to himself, if a bottle can float, then a jar can float. And if a jar floats, I can sit on the top of it, if it's a very big jar. So he took his biggest jar and corked it up. All boats have to have a name, he said. I shall call mine the Floating Bear. And with these words, he dropped his boat into the water and jumped in after it. Christopher Robin lived at the very top of the forest. It rained and rained and it rained, but the water couldn't come up to his house. It was rather jolly to look down into the valleys and see the water all around him, but it rained so hard that he stayed indoors most of the time and he thought about things. Every morning he went out with his umbrella and put a stick in the place where the water came up to. And the next morning he went out and couldn't see a stick anymore, so he put another stick in the place where the water came up to. On the morning of the 5th day, he saw water all around him, and he knew for the first time in his life he was on a real island. It was on this morning that Owl came flying over the water to say, "How do you do?" to his friend Christopher Robin. "I say, Owl," said Christopher Robin, "isn't this fun? I'm on an island." "The atmospheric conditions have been very unfavourable lately," said Owl. "The what?" "It has been raining," Owl explained. "Yes," said Christopher Robin, "it has. Have you seen Pooh?" "Here I am," said a growly voice behind him. "Pooh!" They rushed into each other's arms. "Oh, how did you get here, Pooh?" asked Christopher Robin. "On my boat," said Pooh proudly. "I had a very important message sent to me in a bottle, and owing to have gotten water in my eyes, I couldn't read it, so I brought it here to you, on my boat." With these proud words, he gave Christopher Robin the message. "But it's from Piglet," cried Christopher Robin when he read it. "We must rescue him at once. Owl, could you rescue him on your back?" "Oh, I don't think so," said Owl. "Then would you fly to him at once and say that rescue is coming? And Pooh and I will think of a rescue and come as quick as ever we can." Owl, speechless for once, flew off. "Now then, Pooh," said Christopher Robin, "where's your boat?" "There," said Pooh, pointing proudly to the floating bear. It wasn't what Christopher Robin expected, and the more he looked, the more he thought what a brave and clever bear Pooh was. Boo looked modestly down his nose and tried to pretend he wasn't. "But it's too small for the two of us," said Christopher Robin sadly. "3 of us with Piglet. Oh, that makes it smaller still. Oh, Pooh Bear, what shall we do?" And then this pair, Pooh Bear, said something so clever that Christopher Robin could only look at him with mouth open and eyes staring. "You might go in your umbrella," said Pooh. For suddenly Christopher Robin saw that they might. He opened his umbrella and put it to point downwards in the water. It floated but wobbled. Pooh got in. He was just beginning to say that it was all right now when he found out that it wasn't. Then Christopher Robin got in, and it wobbled no longer. But you can imagine Piglet's joy when at last he saw the good ship of Brain of Pooh coming over the seas to rescue him. And that is really the end of the story. I think I shall stop there.